Welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie. And I'm bringing back my amazing, gorgeous friend, Julie Hutsebaut from Ottawa. And this is kind of part two of our previous discussion where I brought Julie in as our first time guest. She used to be my coach in 2005. That's when we met. And we got into the conversation of concussions. And because Julie sustained a concussion about 6 years ago. And we're going to continue that conversation, which kind of ends from part one. So make sure that you go to episode 133 and start from there if you want to do that. But also, before we bring Julie out, we have to acknowledge that today is a new Canadian national holiday, which is to remember all the Aboriginal lives lost of the children in the residential schools in BC. And so therefore it's called National Day of Truth and Recognition. And that's why we're both in orange. So if that's why you're wondering. So today is a special day. This is being recorded on September 30th. And I think also this segues right into our conversation, right, Julie?
Yes, it's also the National Concussion Awareness Week. So in Canada, this is quite a milestone, and the Coaching Association of Canada and Parachute have been very meaningful ambassadors in raising awareness, creating education tools, and mainly in sports. So what a perfect timing to meet for this part two.
I know, we couldn't have, organized this better. It's just like the university and the stars aligned and brought us together this week. And I know as a coach myself, have started noticing, and I also took one of those, like you're saying, they're putting together more material for coaches in the Coaching Association for cycling. I'm sure it's in all platforms now for coaches, but there are courses in there for concussion awareness. And I did that course probably 2 years ago. It's online, and I was like, oh, and it is, like you're saying, great to have that material to go back on and just get familiarized with symptoms of concussions, because my son is going into football. So Julie, let's go into and just get backing up and going back to your story. Well, I know you're going to talk more about concussions, and I've had many friends who've had sustained concussions, and some have gotten over them quickly. Some have taken years, like yourself. It's been quite some time. Where do you want to start?
That's a good question.
Where would you like to start?
Yes, I'll start also by saying I'm not a certified health practitioner in concussion or in anything. I'm a certified coach and a sport coach, I should say. And I remember saying this in the other interview we did, for me, the importance of education. So, and I was there before I sustained a concussion. So when I decided to start racing, I was already in my early 20s. It was my second competitive sport. And right away, I had a certain objective with that sport. And I knew from the lesson learned from my swimming years as a child and teenager, one thing that I could do better. And one of the things was that I understood my training, the practices I would receive, and understood what I was doing. And I believe still to this day, this is even more important in a sport like cycling, where you are meant to travel on your own or with a team, and your coach is not always a person linked to your team or to your club. So you need to really understand a little bit more your training regimen. So back in the day, in my 20s, I did the coaching certification with that goal in mind, more so than to become a coach. to really understand my career. So, so I sustained a concussion when I was into the workforce. So after I retired, and I went eventually, when I realized it was a bit of a bigger deal than that, the 3 weeks recovery and all that, I went to education. So I looked at, I need to understand what was going on. I was already a mother. I had responsibilities. I had way more bills than when I was an athlete. So I was into that bad space of, how am I going to make it, right? So what is this? Why is this not going away? What is it? So I went to education. So, and at the same, about in those years, the Coaching Association of Canada launched their first concussion course that was free for coaches, Headways. So I started with that, using all kind of rehabilitation techniques and pacing, and then there was also another course at university level. It's called MOOC. It's a massive online open courses. It's all across the world. It's free courses, university on topics. And the first ever on concussion was presented in French by Université Laval in Quebec City, which was good for me too, because I lost my foreign languages too at the beginning of the concussion. I did speech therapy, so English was all over the place. French was all over the place, and the other languages that I used to be able to get by, well, they were lost somewhere, somewhere behind. So being able to learn in French was like a nice little pacing and a nice little support, so a gift basically, and that helped me to really understand much more. Obviously, there was support groups, and I was really fortunate to have a support team and to have access to doctors and such. So bringing it back to education, and I think for any active person, right, who's maybe an adult trying to balance exercise and work and parenting and all that, you want to understand where your limits are and what you want to do. So the goal setting, so all these techniques that are known a bit more into a framework of sport and high performance sport became my go-to. Yeah.
I remember you talking about that, actually. Thinking about, I remember you were saying something along the lines like you used your tasks that you need to do like little intervals. You know, like you do a little interval, then you rest, and then you do another little interval and you rest. And I was like, wow, but the thing is that not a lot, I can't suspect that a lot of people think that way. You know, it's more like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to function now that, this happened to me?
Yeah, I credited my athlete years a lot to my daily self-discipline. And I'll fast forward. So it was really like a 4 years of full rehab. So on year 2, so I had realized that this was going to be the long haul, and I've done sleeping 15 hours a day. So it's like, okay, what am I doing with this? And then I switched to athlete mode, and I switched to the integrated sport team around an athlete and around a team, that you have a psychologist, a nutritionist, you have a coach, you have a manager, you have a mechanic, you have a masseur. So I went to, okay, who are these people? And so I had my doctor, I had a mindfulness group, I had a neuropsych, I had an occupational therapist, I had a speech therapist, I had a massage therapist, I had a physiotherapist. So I went to them, and then I had them talk to each other as well. So that was, and that I can only credit my athlete years and me having been interested with coaching and having had some experience in team management. Because and I felt for my new friends from the concussion community and the rehab community that that perhaps did not have the same perspective, right? So that was one of my solution, and that's why I keep always this segue with sport. It's not just concussion as an adult or as a parent in the workforce. Is really, how do you approach life? And we say sport is school of life, and it's difficult to really measure that when you retire and enter the workforce, and like it or not, your resume doesn't go through the computer scanning, stuff like that. So but it is true. It is true at some point in life where sometimes you expected the least. And for me, it was during my rehabilitation, for sure. And the intervals analogy that you're making, it was from the occupational therapist introducing a point system of the activities, meeting with me and my husband so that we both understand that doing the grocery now was like going for a 100K ride, basically. And how to readapt, so to go to different grocery store and et cetera. So yes, I did see it as intervals, and I was able to accept that I need to recover, because in intervals you recover, right? It's not about going all out all the time, right? Which you can understand. If you only have 6 hours a week to train, you want to make the best out of it, so it's full gas the whole time. But the power of recovery and of slow riding, so that really helped me to hold myself and don't overdo your physio exercises, Julie, and don't,
right, you got 1 hour today and that's it.
Yes.
Then you got to recover. Oh yeah, recovery, right?
Education, recovery, and goal settings. I think in life, anyone who's into enhancing and improving themselves, we will have goals. We will decide why we do this job over another job. So at that time, my goal before the injury, my goal was to race. Then my goal was to start a family and having a job that I love, and that was in sport. Then what was my goal? My goal became to be able to interact with the children. So in between, we can just imagine and just skip over how I got to accept that was a goal in life.
Maybe we should talk about that, because I think for a lot of people, it's accepting that they no longer are able to function at this level. It's got to be like way down to a level that they haven't seen in such a long time or ever. And I think that's where a lot of people fall apart, like the depression, the lack of motivation. How did you get through that? Because I remember when I came and visited you. Yes. I'm like, hey, how you doing? I can't. And you tried to cancel on me. I'm like, I'm coming over. I think cancel on me one. I'm like, no, I'm coming over this time. We're going to have a visit.
Yeah.
I know you're appreciative afterwards, but.
And I was appreciated there. I was afraid. Also, I was afraid at this visit, how long it would take me to recover, because I was such into this regimen. However, I was getting secluded, right? So, and I'm a social bee. I mean, if you're an athlete traveling the world, it's because you like people. And then I kept working in events and in sports. So I like people. And all of a sudden, and it got created that my colleagues, or my friends were my colleagues. My friends from cycling lived everywhere but Ottawa almost. So it was two-sided. So your visit was so positive, and it was a balm and comforting, but at the same time, I was just so afraid that I would lose 2 weeks, right? So It's great that you came, because we need that. We need that presence.
You need that pushy friend.
Yeah, You do. And
I'm like, I haven't seen you in a long time. I'm coming over.
Yeah. And you came during those first 2 years where it was dark. It was dark.
It was dark in your house. No.
Yes, also.
No, I know, because you're
there's no direct sun in this beautiful house.
No, I know, but I remember you saying like and I get it, because you have to turn the lights down, and
Yes.
so there, it's less stress on your eyes and things like that. But I feel that you appreciate just having somebody to talk to, actually.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think I mean, we're still friends today, and it's for these moments. So and if we're all able to bring gratitude a bit more in our lives, because when this happened to me, I found that we were living far, that the house was dark, these things. It was a lot of maintenance. It's all true, but these components allowed for my recovery. Because there was silence. I could walk without having traffic and set up lights. There was no bright light all the time around me. So this all became positive factors and contributing factors to my wellness and my recovery. And I did walk the path of full gratitude, naming those things around me. And as I was identifying it and hearing friends that were living downtown and could not go outside to.
Oh, you're talking about COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. No. During the during my recovery.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So concussed friends that would live straight downtown, they would get out and beep, 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 the lights, the noise, and they would just, so they would go back in. Meanwhile, I'm in the country. So I was able to walk and use exercise as a tool of rehabilitation.
Yeah, that's true. Like when my daughter had her concussion, that's right. Because like it just the quietness and the light and everything really does. You don't think about that, because you don't, like, it doesn't affect you until you actually are around somebody who is saying that this is like really bothering me and it's giving me massive headaches. So how did like, I know you had really low, like, let's just talk about some of those low times, because I mean, you're a pretty strong woman, I have to say, one of the strongest women that I know. And how did you keep yourself moving forward? Because I know that like there is some, in anybody's recovery, you have those days where just like, oh my gosh, and having to manage like the kids and everything. And they were younger at that time, so more need to,
The key
take
word
care.
here is the kids.
Huh?
The key word is the kids.
Yeah, that would help you.
Yeah, that was my reason. It took a while though before I named it, and what I can share for this period is really, for me, it was like an identity quest, right?
Right.
Before, I was a swimmer, I was a cyclist, then I was a paracycling coordinator, then I was a Paralympic coordinator. So my identity was sport. My work tool was my body, then was my brain. And my body, because I was able to travel and work and perform. It was physical work. So when the injury happened, it kind of went from full stop. I was not progressively, reducing the hours. It just went full stop. So it went from 200 miles an hour to full stop. And then I got like 3 weeks off and 3 weeks off. And then I got big bunch of months off. And that was the big slap in the face. And I said, okay, so there's more here. And this is where I said, well, who am I? If I cannot use my brain to work, because that's the association I had, that my brain was not keeping up with what I wanted it to do. So it's the identity quest. I didn't know who I was, let alone what I could do. And that took a while. And I'm forever grateful for having support, medical support around me. And again, credited the 20 years before that of sport experience. So to know that it's okay to have help. And I was so grateful that I have worked in parasport for 6-8 years by then. So I knew the power and the possible outcome of rehabilitation. So for me, that helped me to accept and to move on to, let's get better. Let's perform. Let's perform at rehab. You know?
Yeah, no kidding. So so when did that mind shift happen? Because that is a big switch.
It was for the children. I was sick and tired to be on the couch all the time. I was done with being at dinner with the kids. I was done not being able to do homeworks with them, to hear about their days, to not being able to pick them up. I was done with that. But it took me a while before I saw there could be a light out of the tunnel and that there could be solutions. And kids were not enough to get me out of that spiral. And one day I touched the ground so low, and I pictured the kids getting older without me being around. And I went, no. So probably because of my experience and some stuff that we shared in part 1. So that's where it all got clear, saying that let's get better and then we'll figure out what we do. And we'll make it happen. And we talk a lot about concussion in sport. Rightfully so. And the conversation is also shifting very much into para-athletes. And I want to say it here because it's so important that it continues that way. And then I lost my train of thought saying that.
Para-athletes, concussion. You were looking for the correlation.
Me alone, I could have lived anywhere, eat white pasta, and just get back at it and do whatever job. But now, because I was a mother, I had those bills, I had this house. Everything seemed bigger. It's like when you decide to start a sport, you're racing regional, but the only other option is to be at the international level. It was kind of that jump. And then it was impossible for me. So with help, really a lot of professional help, I was able to break it down in small steps and do one step at a time and one step at a time. So the intervals layout of my days were for the objective, going back to goal settings, the objective that tonight I'm around the children from 4:30 to 8 without napping, being asleep, lying down, So that was my goal. And then that was achieved. Okay, now I'm going there, and now I'm going there. And then I'm going to find a job at that level, and then of that, because there was a certain lifestyle that I continue to really want for the kids, that the guilt that...
Hey, let's take a mini break because I have to tell you about this unique online cycling coaching program that's going to blow your mind. This is your fast and easy way to become a better and stronger cyclist by joining an online 16-week cycling training program geared towards improving cycling skills. My name is Sylvie, your podcast host and Level 3 National Cycling Performance Coach. I have been coaching this unique 16-week program every winter since 2006. Why did I create this unique 16-week program? Winters were harsh and still are here in the region. No one likes or liked to work out alone in their basements until the world of online cycling really took off last year during COVID, which has been a game changer for cyclists worldwide. So why would you sign up to a 16-week online road cycling training skills program when you could be riding inside? Well, here's the thing. There's this little known thing called the 4 key pedal strokes. Hardly anyone is talking about, but when you learn and use them, you will see a huge difference in your cycling performance, not to mention impressing your friends and yourself. First, why are you training on a trainer this winter anyways? What are your goals? Do you want to get faster? Could it be moving from 18 kilometers an hour to 20 kilometers an hour? Do you want to win that sprint? Are you looking to get stronger on the hills? Do you want to now be the first to the top, not the last? Is it your endurance base building? Do you want to move into a faster ride group? Or maybe you're looking at getting into racing. Whatever the goals, they require specific skills that need to be taught and practiced in order to improve. I've coached over 500 cyclists in this program with a reported 5 to 20% increase in cycling fitness over the 16-week. Here are a couple of reasons that this program might be for you. You're still frustrated with climbing hills and keeping up with the pack. You like structure and scheduled training sessions. You like to train in your cycling zones. Your heart rate is all over the place. Possibly you want to optimize gear changing and learn a little bit more about that to become more efficient. You would like coaching feedback on technique and form. Joining a cycling skills program like the 16-week program can provide more benefits that will help drastically improve your cycling fitness through focused training in your heart rate zones, hill climbing, speed, endurance, while building up fitness through the 16 weeks of periodized winter and strength training program. Go to 16wkroadcycling.ca. That's 16wkroadcycling.ca for all the details and to join today. The program starts in December. Now, back to our episode.
Let's just say it straightforward that I could not do sport because I could not. I could not earn my life, to afford that. That I was not willing. So what was my motivation? My story for me was really my children, the three of them, my stepson included, because they were young. They were 14, 7, and 5.5 when it happened. So that's that. So the identity, and I think it's important because we talk about if there's a lot of active cyclists that come to your podcast, and I'm sure there's a very wide range of people listening to you of all ages, and we all need to re-identify a little bit who we are and what our priorities are, right? So in my case, it was concussion. Someone else, it can be cancer. Someone else can be a gold medal. Someone else can, so it's to continue to have that conversation and to go back to education and to go back to prevention. This is what's happening also today with the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation is to simply talk. We're not here to fix. We're just here to acknowledge. Yeah. So to recognize the signs of a concussion, like this week, there was a lot of articles in the sport community about how concussions are much more complex for para-athletes because, if visually impaired players hit each other on the head, or, they don't realize it. And then we're going to focus on the other sport that they're playing and not that, hitting their heads is almost part of, like in football and football, things like that. So it's really interesting, right?
Oh my God, that is really interesting. Where are you finding those articles, Julie?
Sports Research Center.
Just search, everybody, Concussion Week.
Yes.
And sorry, what was that?
And coach.ca.
Oh, okay. So coach.ca.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. That's in Canada. So coach.ca, that's our coaching association.
Yes. I want to give another example of this. I was fortunate enough to work with some paracyclists and to travel at international events with them. And I learned so much. And I learned about all these wide scope of injuries and that sometimes a head trauma is not the main injury and the main disability of the athlete, right? He is an amputee or so on and so forth. But the head injury becomes a factor in the performance. And I think now, it's been over 10 years that I was into that field. you know, I think the research and the knowledge is way more advanced now, and it's an open conversation. By the time, so just we would share information and best practices between countries, between experts, and to support better our athletes that are dealing with these intersectional disabilities. Just like today, invisible disabilities is recognized as, you know, and it's not just intellectual or physical or mobility. It's all neurodiversity. It's epilepsy, like Marion Clignet was talking.
Yeah, like epilepsy. Yeah,
epilepsy and diabetes and autistic and head injuries and concussions and things like that. So
yeah,
that's,
head injuries can affect a lot of things, like body wise, because I coached a lady who had head trauma from when she was a teenager for a short period, but it had affected her whole side, right? Arm and leg. So it wasn't just the head. It started there, but it affected her whole left side. So you have to think about
it's not one size fits all, that's for sure. So the more we talk about it, and I think the goal, if we talk about cycling or sport in general, to me the goal is to be active for life, is to remain active, to remain with strong bodies, and strong bodies, not necessarily the leanest as possible, but strong that they can hold yourself, right?
And well, so this is where strength training comes in. It's very important.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to talk more about that as I grow old, as a female, as we grow older. It was never so much as a concern back when we were younger as it does become when you're mid-40s. And if you recognize or realize it when you're mid-40, you definitely want to jump on and start doing something about it. So it's no longer a luxury. That's what I found. There's no longer a luxury to get in the gym. It's like a necessity now. For life.
No, I agree. Taking care of ourselves is a necessity. It's a privilege to age, right? The other option is not that great. So
I know, like, what would you prefer?
If you're not ready,
A
so
or B? There ain't no C. You know, like, exactly. And both take work. You know, it takes a lot of work to stay healthy. It takes a lot of work to stay unhealthy. And which kind of work do you want to do? So what are you doing right now to, like, you're working? I believe you're working. And so how is your concussion moving along? Like, I know it's always going to be there, right? Like the symptoms.
That's what I was, that's the diagnostic I received. And it continues to evolve. So it's going to be 8 years, actually. It's going to be 8 years in November. And one would think that I wouldn't know what to do with it and what my boundaries are. But I continue.
Are you pushing your boundaries there, Julie? Not. Not you.
And, you know, what's happening now with it, it's all my life, I'm much more purposeful.
Yeah.
And, but that's such hard work because you have to say no to so much, you know.
It's not a bad thing though. Now you can just really pick and choose exactly what you want to do.
But it's a lot of mental work. It's a lot of self-respect. It's a lot of self-identification. But it's the same as when you're an athlete and you say no to. And by saying no to social, to gravies at Christmas, or to so and so, what do you say yes to? You say yes to your performance goal. You say yes to your sponsorship. You say yes to a bunch of things. So that was the same thing that happened during my rehabilitation. What do I say no to? So I did say no to many invitations. I tried to say no to you. That did not work.
Good thing. I think.
But I said no to family reunions at Easter. And that was very hard because I said no to that with tears, right?
Yeah.
It was very hard. But I was saying yes to my kids. I was saying yes to getting back into the workforce, to getting better. And now, what do I say no to? It's, I do feel I'm still getting more and more resilient every year of in an environment point of view, because the environment affects me a lot. So the social and this and that. So I can do more, but I still need the pacing. And when I do 2 days in a row of social, because I think I can do it, well, look at this, you know, I don't feel that great for a couple of days. So it's, it continues to be, what do I say yes to, right?
Yeah,
and
good point.
Yeah, and the default, I call it like my other me. It's my default me from when I was working a lot, when the hours, you know, would just add up, you do everything. It's like, as I get, if I reach a new threshold, well, the old me comes back and adds, and then I learn to slow down again. So, so that's the current challenge in continuing to manage the condition. Exercise is a thing. So I'm exercising more and more every year, but I'm still not able to go on group rides. Or if I was to test a group ride, I might need 10 days to recover cognitively. My legs can keep up, but not my head. So that's still a grief because I miss it. Right.
Well, I think that, you know, like you've gone about it right, because the worst thing is setbacks, right? Because that it takes even longer for you to move forward. And I like the fact that, you know, and I think my daughter having her concussion, she's doing the same thing. She's like, she's learning to plan ahead for what's coming ahead. And that's what you said to me. Like, if we're going to talk, I have to prepare myself mentally and physically for it, because then I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to put out a lot of energy, and then I have to think about how I'm going to feel afterwards. I'm like, okay, so you're like, I only have 45 minutes for you. I'm like, okay. And but the thing is that you are able to add more like every year, and we have so much time ahead of us that, you know, the realization you don't have to do everything right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where, like, I'm like, okay, well, I'll try a group ride, 2 people, maybe 4.
Exactly.
And then we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, because the fitness level 2 has got to come back, but you know, it's going to, because you have such a base, even though it's been a while. I can't see that at not, you know, in a couple of years being back to where it is.
Well, we'll see. We'll see then, but that's exactly it. And you learn to adapt. I have this key motto that works for me, works with the families. Integration is the key. When we decide what kind of activity we're going to do as a family, we integrate everyone. And it's a little bit more subtle, because it's not like I'm in a wheelchair, right? That we need a ramp. So it's more invisible. And we learn as a family that it was not just based on me who has some limitation. You know, that can become very prejudiced and really heavy to carry. Yeah. So it became, we all learn how to know each other a bit more, even if the kids are younger, and as they age, their personality is shining through, and everyone has an individuality. So basically, we're choosing together activities that fit us. And I'll give you.
We had a great holiday.
We had a great holiday. Thank you. That's exactly where I was going. But we've prepared me for 2 years for that holiday. And the planning of which activities, it was to be integrated. So one family member is not maybe as fit as the rest. So we had to make sure that every activity would be adapted. There was some river activity. So we went and tested myself. We did a family rafting. We tested out, and we did it on a year that, and we paced that whole week. We didn't do,
Wow.
you know, and we did it on a year that it fitted, and I knew where I would be with the recovery. So, and we postponed, that trip has been postponed 2 years, and not because of COVID, because as a family, we were not ready. We were not prepared. So when we have grandparents or other kind of guests, any kind of guests that have preferences, for us is not, we're not lacking in activity. We're being together. We're valuing the presence. So we've learned that. Obviously, at the beginning was a lot focused on what can mommy do. So eventually, I was more than uncomfortable with that, right? It was hindering me, right? So then we became just more inclusive. And yes, I have children, including my stepson, who are extremely aware and knowledgeable about concussion. So when their friends, you know, this happens to their friends, they're often a very good support to their friends. So, so that's where one thing now, and for anyone who's listening to this who has any kind of other invisible injuries or condition, or is recovering from something, I'm so far from being done with that journey, right? And I've met athletes that had accepted their injury way more than I have as of now. So I still have so much to do on that front. But what helps me is what's my purpose? What's my goal setting? The script, I ask you as well, what exactly do you want to talk about? What are the questions? So I know a little bit where I'm going. I'm not that great at improvising anymore. So things like that, but I'm here, right? I've carved time. I said no to some things this week to be able to have the time to talk with you. I told you this, and I really need it. I admire what you do, that you keep going at it, that you believe in you, that you're putting so many stories out there to help out. And I want to contribute to that. I want to help you doing that. And I thank you for the platform, because now my it's not a mission, but what really drives me is to bring people with disabilities back into the workforce, and to using their strengths, what they can do instead of what they cannot do anymore. And we are at a time where accommodations are perceived as a tool, something positive more than negative and detrimental, because we have children that have received help in school for easily a decade, right? So many kids have their additional support person or have a learning plan. So all these people are coming to the workforce. And so accommodation is it's just a thing. It's not because you're lacking something. It's just a thing to make you contribute. And I want to be part of that. I hope I can be part of that. And I'm really blessed that I'm able to access a little bit of those conversations in my day job, and in my passion, in my free time. Like today, I am blessed with a holiday day because I work for the government. So I'm able to give that time to you. And it respects my timelines, right? It respects where I can focus cognitively too. So, but now also with exercise, because exercising, nutrition, all that, but sport is recognized as being such a wellness factor. And it's hard, we don't prioritize it. Even me, after 20 years of sport, I would not carve the time to exercise. I know, and I did not before the injury, because I prioritized the work, and I had to catch up. I had years to catch up. That was my mind, right? And then when I don't catch up, I need to be home for the kids. And so that was my journey. That's where I was at. So life took me out of that when my kids were still quite young, 5, 7 years old. And then I can tell you, all of my doctors and therapists would put in big first thing to do, exercise, exercise. You know?
You're like, uh.
So to this day, as I'm still building that self-confidence of this is who I am, and that's okay, I have to prioritize doing sport. And I know it doesn't necessarily work at 5 o'clock in the morning or at 9 o'clock at night, you know, before and after the kids. So I need to figure it out. And it does fit if I remove something, and it fits from the moment that I really value it, right? So
well, yeah, this is a really good point, because this is where I have started thinking, and this is not concussion based, but started thinking about helping more women do just that. Because like what you said, you can fit it in, but you might have to remove something.
Yeah.
And as for women, we don't put it on the forefront. Okay, let's just say individuals don't put it on the forefront. Don't have to be women, doesn't have to be men, but everything else goes at the top of the list. And that's kind of like, well, if I have 5 minutes, then I might go for a walk. Where now it's got to be the reverse. It's got to be at the top. It's part of the self-care that helps everybody. And, you know, and realizing that and being okay with it, and not feeling guilty that you're not finishing off your document for work that's going to, take you into overtime, or maybe the kids might have to spend 20 minutes playing so you could go work out so that you have better mental health. It's realizing those things. Mm-hmm. And that's where I was like, I see more and more need for that kind of coaching and help to balance it out, because we can do it all. You can, but you just have to shift things, reprioritize.
Yeah.
But yeah.
In this current model of a certain framework, because with the new generation and the younger generation coming into the workforce, it seems that they're better at fitting in their things for themselves in the middle of the day.
They're all about themselves. Yeah.
We'll see. But I'm in the same age group as you, so
we're kind of in the mid, like,
yes.
Right? Like our parents were like work, not like, and then we're like half work, half kid. Like, we kind of like don't even know. And then our younger kids like, well, I'm gonna do my thing, and then like maybe I'll work. No, it's kidding.
And you're a good model for that too, right? You need to work, you need to have your business, you spend some time for, creating your dream, bringing exercise in the daytime for you,
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways. It's not easy, but there are ways. And at the end, what's the objective? Well, for me, my objective is my health and my wellness, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So it keeps evolving, right? But I'm certainly extremely grateful that I went into cycling, because that was not a given. Even if my family even if I was born and raised in cycling, it was not a given that I would embrace it myself. And I'm very grateful, because I do see how sport is a school of life, and I'm convinced I'll get back to it, and maybe I'll do a group ride of more than 5-6 people one day.
Oh, you will. Don't say maybe. Say I will.
I will. You're good.
I will do a group ride with more,
right.
And then I will join Sylvie's club one day. Just say it. Say it with me, Julie. Say it with me.
I'll be happy.
Or I will come and group ride with you. I will come and ride with you.
Yes, I will be happy to join.
Oh,
eventually.
Don't say it. I'll be over there tomorrow. I'll book you in a week. No, before it snows. But so you know what? I'm super grateful that we were able to chat, and I was able to get you onto the podcast, because how could I not? You had such a big role in me getting in cycling or into the racing, and just you taught me so much. And I am certainly grateful that we are still friends, because, you know, a lot of people, you know, don't necessarily stick, you know, with people that they've met,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
go their different ways. And then, you know, so, and I don't know about you, and like we take this off this like coffee chat, but I don't know about you, but like for me, I'm finding it, I found it increasingly hard to find people to hang and talk and be friends with, like true friends. Like I've got tons of like acquaintances,
Acquaintances. Yeah.
you know, through sport and cycling and the club and everything, but true friends um, are few and far between. And it's just like, and it's one of those things that are at the bottom of my list, like family, health, sport, business, friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I've kind of moved it to the top, because I realize and recognize that moving forward in life, I need to have those quality friendships, like quality friendships, not business friendships, like quality. And so, and
I
that's
can,
another
I
reason
can
why.
do, I'm happy for you, and I can relate. That was the first um, realization really after my injury, because all of
Mhm.
a sudden there was no one, and
Yeah.
I could not necessarily pick up the phone or being on text or being on Facebook all the time to reach out to stay in touch. So yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying, and how relationships were just a given, take it for
Mm-hmm.
granted, and not really nourished, and then how it came all the way back up to the pile. Definitely,
But
definitely.
I'm not typically like one of those extroverted people that go out and naturally make like good friendships. I find it's just, it's a weird feeling, and it's a very isolating feeling too. You know, I look at my husband, and he has like quality friendships with like 12 guys that has been friends with like for, you know, 25 years. He sees them every weekend. They golf every week. You know, they go away golf tournaments. Like, I'm like, man, that's what I want. I want a girl gang just like that. But you know what? You find people that are like good with you, but then you guys just don't mesh. Like you don't have the same kind of, I don't know, goals. It's
Mhm.
just, you know, like you wouldn't necessarily call them up all the time. Or maybe they call you up only when they need you or something, you know? So,
Yeah,
but
yeah. The pleasant factor. I think maybe that would be the wrap up of my journey with concussion. I think is the pleasant factor is what got extracted to it, and being education. I love the episodes that you do, that you teach people, that you teach a technique, that you provide tools, right? So for whoever is listening to that and decide that cycling is their fun exercise, well, there's a tool so that it's more pleasant, right? It's like when I love coaching people who start cycling, or I love coaching, it's a big word, even just accompanying on rides, where you just help them have a steady pedal stroke or circular pedal stroke, and then poof, they fly away.
I know,
The
really.
pleasant factor. So strength training would be so that life is pleasant. You don't feel that pain and discomfort as much, right? And the pacing, be having purpose in life, knowing what you want. So you're saying, what do you say no to? So it's to have that joy a little bit more and pleasant factor. And if
Mhm.
anything, that's what the concussion taught me. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I really look forward for the next couple of decades ahead.
Well, that's good, because this is a great way to just wrap it all up, and tie it off with a bow. And, you know, like, thank you. You know, I just want to thank you, Julie, and thank our listeners. So, you know, guys, if you know of somebody who's suffering from a concussion, maybe you haven't seen them for a while and you're kind of wondering, this is the time to kind of reach out, not call, just go over. Go over and knock on the door and say, hey, how are you doing? Because literally, I mean, they can't say no. And if it's really that bad, then they can say no to your face. But I bet you that person would really appreciate it. Julie did.
If the person
we're still friends.
They'll be honest, they'll tell you. And you also, you know, if you want to, I will point out two things that you did super well that time. Sorry for interrupting. Is you came up with your drinks, with your snacks. You left. You know, you did not stay for 3 hours. So that's also being thoughtful of the other. So you know, the person, you're not there to be anyway. You're there for the presence. And we hear that often with people going through cancer. Sometimes they're reaching out, they don't know what to say, and understandably, but reaching out, not knowing what to say, sometimes is better appreciated than not reaching out at all. So it's a little bit of the same, of an equivalent analogy. And then what you did was meeting those frameworks. So that's why I'm taking the time to just sign, because yes, if you can help someone out there, you know, it's you.
That's right. We don't have to be talk concussion. There's a lot of people who are suffering in silence right now, and could probably use a walk in the park with somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know, if you don't want to hang out at the kitchen table and drink coffee, you can go outside. So with that, thank you, Julie. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so grateful. We really should go for a ride.
Yeah, we will.
Down to Cumberland, go for a coffee at the Black Walnut.
Absolutely. Thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, our listeners, and have yourselves an amazing day, everyone. Take care.